So the floor is yours.
All right. So I will start by introducing Selena. So first of all, everybody, welcome to our keynote. We're very excited to have Selena here. Selena Deckelman is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at the Wikimedia Foundation, where she leads the product and technology departments. And we were very excited. She joined us in that role in August of this year. So she's only been with us for a few months. But before joining the Wikimedia Foundation, Selena was serving as the Senior Vice President of Mozilla, leading the organization of more than 400 people for all Firefox product and technology functions, including desktop, mobile, web platform, and browser services. She oversaw some of the company's most significant achievements, including performance projects like Quantum Flow, architectural changes like Project Fission, key features like enhanced tracking protection and total cookie protection, and services such as Firefox Monitor. In her 9 years at Mozilla, Selena held various other roles, including Vice President for Firefox Desktop, Senior Director for Web Platform Engineering and Gecko Runtime, and Senior Manager for Gecko Security Engineering. Selena also brings experience from her previous roles as co-founder of Prime Radiant, a software as a service business that explored how to improve business processes at scale with checklist automation software, and also as consulting director of development for the ADA initiative, which is super exciting for me, an organization that was dedicated to increasing the participation of women in open source and technology communities. She was also a major contributor to PostgreSQL, one of the largest free and open source databases in the world. So welcome, Selena. And we are going to have a little conversation. And I'm going to ask Selena a few questions, and she's going to answer. And then we will open up the floor to questions from those both in the room and online.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy. And I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to get to do this today. So thanks.
Great, thank you. So my first question is, how has your experience at Mozilla shaped who you are and how you approach your role at the Wikimedia Foundation?
Yeah, and I just want to, did you all want to record this? It's fine with me. Oh, it will be recorded. Okay.
It is being recorded, yes.
Okay, sorry. That wasn't like a very keynote-y like interjection. But so anyway, so this is a great question. Thank you for it. And I just want to say also thanks for having me. I really appreciate being able to participate. And I've already been talked to that my next moment of participation should be in person. So I'm going to see if I can get that in my diary now, because I would love really to meet you all in person. I was thinking about my answers to some of these questions. I was like, oh, and I'm not really going to get the chance to then, talk to you in person about these things. So I guess like, as I'm talking about this stuff, I really invite you all, like, if there's something that you want to follow up on or, talk about later, please go ahead and follow up. So back to the question though, how has my experience at Mozilla shaped how I'm approaching my role at the foundation? Well, one thing that I've thought about as a parallel is that, browsers, they're a platform that's created for downloading and then running untrusted code written by random people on the internet and just running that on your computer. And browsers themselves are just full of great code, but also hacks and workarounds. And they were developed also over decades in tandem with the development of the internet. MediaWiki, it's a platform. It's used by millions of people and used to serve billions of pages of content that has been written over decades. And it's also, a solid platform, but has thousands of hacks and workarounds to make it function. And these are things that Firefox and MediaWiki have in common. And it's part, my experience there is part of what makes me really excited to be here. While I was preparing to join you, I thought about the impact that MediaWiki has had on the world. Wikipedia, obviously, is one outcome of that work. but there's tens of thousands, and honestly, I would guess hundreds of thousands of sites that use MediaWiki today. And I've been told that this relationship between MediaWiki and Wikipedia often has made it easier for wiki software to be brought into companies that might not have like really understood, you know, what a wiki is even, or well enough to adopt it. And sometimes it's hard to believe, I think, that that's still like an issue in the world, that like people wouldn't like think that this kind of collaboration software was useful or relevant. But regardless of how mainstream Wikipedia is, wikis themselves, I would say, continue to be subversive software, like in the best possible way. So just to add a little more to my answer here, I think that Mozilla really changed my life in a number of ways that will impact how I approach my role here at the foundation. You know, I became a manager of engineers there, and then a middle manager, and then an executive. I had 2 children while I worked there. And I had several incredible managers whose experience with open source software and community informed how they managed Firefox, how they managed the people that worked at Mozilla. And I think there's like 3 specific things in addition to what I said before, just about my experience, that kind of are going to inform how I, you know, operate basically. I think the first thing is really understanding and involving volunteers in our work. Mozilla continues to involve volunteers really deeply in most aspects of their work, and people really go out of their way to accept volunteer contributions. The foundation is very similar in significant ways, but I would say that the Wikimedia Foundation operates at a completely different scale in terms of the number of volunteers that are participating in content creation, as well as like in the technical and operational sides of the projects. So just a small thing, you know, in these first couple months that I've asked teams to do when they meet in person is to bring volunteers into those offsites. A second thing is the value of stating principles and being explicit and using very simple language. Something that I learned from Mitchell Baker was how important that it is to identify the principles that are guiding decisions and to use plain language. I would say the Mozilla Manifesto is probably the most visible and enduring example of this kind of work. And also I would say the user rights statement and the privacy policy of Firefox were something I was really proud of when I was there. So I think this will definitely affect and inform, you know, the way that I do work at the foundation. You'll be seeing me seeking to clarify, simplify, and distill work that we do down to principles that are easy to understand where I can. And then the last thing was just the importance of relationships in the really hard work that folks that come to these, you know, kinds of nonprofits and, you know, open source projects, you know, just the importance of those relationships in this work that we sign up for. I would say that Mozilla, well, I wouldn't say, Mozilla and the Wikimedia Foundation are roughly the same size, you know, it's very, very close. And they're like relatively small, you know, when compared to the impact that the organizations, the software, and the communities have on the world. And a great deal of the work that happens is not really because there's like some company, you know, big company process, but it's really through the creativity and the thoughtfulness of a very small number of people. So I just close this by saying I just feel incredibly lucky to once again be able to collaborate with people who are super energized and they're really here to make the world a better place, like through the work that we do.
That's wonderful. And yeah, those are definitely, there are parallels between those environments. And so I've already seen, you know, we had a meeting in Berlin last month where I was fortunate enough to actually meet Selena in person. And just our work together as a team there, informed by your experience, I think has been really helpful. So I'm excited for the future as well, based upon that. So that's great. So I'll move on to the next. I'm wondering, has there been anything that surprised you or been unexpected since joining the foundation?
Yeah, this is a good question. I kind of thought about it a little bit, and you know, I said that Mozilla and the Wikimedia Foundation, you know, deeply involve volunteers in the ways that the organizations work. But something that surprised me was the extent to which the Wikipedia and really all of the product communities completely independently govern themselves. And that like that realization, like it's I think many people do not understand this distinction. So anyway, so it continues to surprise me, and navigating that space is like one of the key pieces of work, you know, for me in my role. And I would say that there's just an incredible amount of strength in that model, you know, the distributed nature of it, the independence, and the things that these, you know, content communities are able to do because of their independence. I think it's, you know, amazing and quite transparent, because you can kind of see what the deliberations are like and the decisions that people make. I would say there are also some real challenges for the product and technical decision making because it's unusual. And, you know, so people who experience it for the first time and maybe have never even experienced an open source technical community like this, I think is probably pretty shocking. So anyway, so I think there's just like a lot of work for me to, you know, do there. Interesting work to improve both, I would say, the volunteer experience of, you know, the foundation's product development process, which they've made incredible strides on. But, you know, I would say that they all agree like we can do more. And also the experience of the product managers and developers themselves, you know, who just really want to do great work. And, you know, and they came here to improve what I would say is like the most important website in the world. So how can we do that together? That's like, I definitely think that's like a key part of my role here to figure that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had a similar experience joining the foundation about 5 years ago and seeing not only just sort of this amorphous nature of the community, but there isn't a single community. There's different communities of content creators, communities, even separate groups of developers, you know, those who are contributing to Wikimedia focused software, as well as, you know, the people that are in the room here and online that are contributing to third-party software solutions for MediaWiki. So it's multiple self-governed groups all working together, and it's amazing. Just like the fact, you know, the surprise that Wikipedia actually works, right? You know, the fact that all these groups work together well is awesome. So cool. Well, I will move on then. Wikimedia Deutschland has teams responsible for the Wikibase product platform and for Wikibase Cloud. These support third parties who want to deploy their own Wikibase instances. Since Wikibase is a MediaWiki extension, how do you see this affecting third-party users of the MediaWiki software itself?
Yeah, great question. So I'm pretty new, and as I mentioned before, my background is in browsers. So I think this is a super interesting question, but I haven't formed a clear opinion on it. Instead, what I did is I went and talked to some of the staff that have been here for a while and kind of see, like, you know, how they're thinking about it right now. And I'll tell you what I've learned so far. You know, obviously, as you said, the Wikimedia Deutschland is committed to setting up and running wikis for third parties. And, you know, several people that I spoke with, they shared their like hopes and aspirations for this work, including, you know, that it improves our understanding of a bunch of different use cases and scalability needs, that we just get better at streamlining installation and we improve administration interfaces as a result of this. And also, you know, just like the very practical improving, you know, how security updates happen across multiple installations. And there was more that people brought up. In addition to that, you know, some of these colleagues, they pointed out to me that there have been hints in past years that the foundation has deprioritized support of third-party users and instead focused development and support work on the core use cases of the Wikimedia projects. Kind of related to this, you and I, Cindy, talked about, you know, you told me a story about setting up a MediaWiki instance whose purpose wasn't to be an encyclopedia, but maybe like a knowledge base use case. and finding that the 50 or so extensions, that were installed and enabled differed almost entirely from Wikipedia production instance. So like, given all that, and given how much it's possible to change through extensions, question I'm really interested, in getting to the heart of is what we think the responsibilities of core MediaWiki are, and the kinds of developer, in answering that, I think it's going to bring up a number of additional important questions. Anyway, so I think there's like an area to explore there. Overall, I'd say that we need to continue to support third-party installs, but exactly what that means, and I think some of these questions later on kind of get to some of these issues. It's related to how we think about the core of MediaWiki, and then the kind of developer and administrator experiences that we choose to prioritize. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and these are all questions that we have both within the foundation as well as within the third-party community struggled with for years. And so it's exciting to be talking about them and to be searching for solutions and answers, even if the answers aren't always exactly the ones that, we can't satisfy everybody, right? So but at least find a solution that works for people. So yeah, absolutely. So Semantic MediaWiki, which is what this conference is all about, purportedly by the title, right? Semantic MediaWiki and Wikibase have incompatible tool ecosystems, splitting the FLOSS knowledge management community. Does the Wikimedia Foundation have any incentive or responsibility for supporting interoperability efforts between Semantic MediaWiki and Wikibase?
Yeah, this is another great question, and I think it touches on some really interesting history. Again, being new, I don't know all of it, so I'm relying on people to inform me, and also important use case difference in the evolution of the software. So, first, I'm super lucky to have access to some of the amazing engineers that created both Semantic MediaWiki and Wikibase, and then I've also built interesting work on top of them, and then they came to work at the foundation. And when I reached out to a few people about this, they made a really important distinction to me, which is probably obvious to everyone that's in the room, but I'll just say it aloud just to share what I've learned. And this distinction was between facts that are embedded in Wikitext, and a system for modeling a diversity of opinions on what a fact really is, which, in the example I'm about to share, it's, basically an opinion. So, or maybe more specifically, a political opinion. So, Semantic MediaWiki, it allows for the creation of data records as part of the page in Wikitext, which then, obviously supports a lot of interesting downstream use cases like phone books or calendars. And, and this is that identification of facts use case that folks told me about. And Wikibase, in contrast, it models data very differently, with the purpose being to model that diversity of opinions. And so what that means in Wikibase is that you can't state the boiling point of water. You can only declare that someone made a certain statement about the boiling point of water, and that you can declare, it depends on pressure and the established understanding, that might have been revised at some point. And, the whole point of this is to model something, that I would say is a core belief of Wikipedians, but, many of the projects, which is that we're going to, I don't know if I would say enforce, but we're going to enable modeling neutral point of view. And so for questions like, what is the area of a country, which depends on the territories you include and is therefore a political question, I think that's the aim. And so the result of all this is that the maintenance and, the implementation of search is quite a bit more complicated, for Wikibase, for, I think, obvious reasons. So getting back to your question, I think that given that Semantic MediaWiki is an extension, our continued support, it likely depends generally on our support of extensions and avoiding breaking compatibility. But given the two really distinct use cases, I don't have a clear answer. This is something that I think I could use some feedback and, learn more about. I'm not really sure what supporting interoperability like actually means. So I think, you know, you should inform me. Let me know what this means beyond like, you know, just ensuring that we're not breaking backward compatibility. And I'm super open to learning more about that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. That's obviously a whole other conversation, right? And that whole idea about claims, you know, the one that really struck me, that resonated with me when I first heard about Wikibase was population of a city. And you can't really say what the population, you know, it changes, you know, with every birth and death and somebody moving in and out. There is no single answer. And I had never really thought about population that way before. I had always thought there's a number, right? How many people live, you know, and it is, as you say, an opinion. So sort of interesting. And so you can make claims about it. And on this day at this time. So, okay. So next question, many complex FLOSS platforms now support some sort of containerization. The Wikimedia infrastructure is switching to a containerized setup internally. Do you have a vision for how MediaWiki might be packaged for third parties in the future?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, I've learned that the image that we deploy today for production Wikipedia has 197 extensions and skins bundled with it. And our tarball release has 35. So just there, you know, I'm very much still learning about what it means exactly for the teams that are supporting our releases, but I can imagine a few different issues, you know, that we might have, like insufficient testing capacity, you know, for these different extension configurations, and I'm sure a whole host of other issues. So anyway, I'm on a learning journey there. And I'll just like admit here, you know, packaging isn't a current focus for me. So most likely what I'm going to do here is ask the teams that do focus on this for their, you know, vision of and opinions about what the best path forward is. You know, I know that there are individuals who feel quite committed to continuing to support the packaging that's been there before, but I think they probably need a little more support for this to be effective. So again, I think that this is an area where input is helpful, and talking about the, you know, use cases that are problematic or, you know, should continue to be supported, like send us that information, and, you know, and then the teams can incorporate that into like what they decide to do next.
Awesome. Yeah. And there is also work within the third-party community to package MediaWiki and deliver it with extensions that are compatible. There are folks that are here. There was a talk earlier today about Canasta, the Canasta environment. There's also the work going on in the OpenCSP project. So yeah, there's a lot of room for us to discuss this going forward as well. So I've just got a couple more questions, and then I'm going to open it up so folks in the audience can think about questions they might want to ask Selena as well. But what should be the role of volunteer developers in the Wikimedia technical decision-making process?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to answer this question in kind of a general way. I'm not sure if it was meant to be specifically about the technical decision-making forum or not, but I think it's best for me to like answer it generally about what I think about developer community and yeah, in the ways I'd like us to engage. And I'm not really going to answer about the specific policy, internal policy stuff right now. But I would say, unlike a closed source focused technical organization, we invite and involve volunteers in all aspects of our work. And, you know, we have folks who contribute to MediaWiki core, you know, as volunteers and deploy extensions in their free time. We have bot and script writers who automate workflows and, you know, generally keep editing and patrolling manageable and even enjoyable for the folks that like to do those types of tasks. You know, and we have folks that write extensions for their own use, and a host of other ways that technical contributors get involved. You know, I would say that I prefer to get input from volunteer developers about decisions that affect them, and if possible, to make space for volunteers to accept responsibility for the results of some of those decisions, which might mean ongoing support, deployment, you know, or some other kind of involvement. I don't know. There's actually quite a few different outcomes that happen. So, you know, there are some areas where I would say the foundation staff really needs to make decisions primarily. And, the things that come to mind are issues around trust and safety, or where, volunteers, they really just shouldn't be in a position to bear financial or legal consequences, for certain types of decisions. And, another thing I just want to add, because you mentioned the ADA initiative in my intro and your interest there, like, how deeply involved volunteers get, it's often a result of interest, opportunity, and then active mentorship. And, opportunity here, it like has like a couple of different meanings. It's opportunities that the foundation itself offers, but also, the opportunities and privileges that are just available to individuals. So, I personally, I've benefited from being raised in a wealthy country. I had healthcare because of my father's union. I attended college, and I was really fortunate to be mentored by, extremely privileged white men who helped create the internet. I share this to just call out that volunteering in a technical capacity, it's to open source, it's often the result of, incredible privilege. So recognizing this has led like some people to create paid internship programs like Outreachy, which I personally just love. And there's others, Google Summer of Code, lots of others. And I think the foundation actually we're going to have an additional internship program on top of all that. But what Outreachy specifically does is it encourages underrepresented minorities to participate in open source. And so while we continue to, incorporate technical volunteers in our decision-making processes at the foundation, it's also true that we kind of have to support this like welcoming of volunteers from less privileged backgrounds. And at the same time as the foundation itself works on itself becoming more inclusive and diverse as an organization. So it's all of that stuff is part of how I think about technical contributions. And so I really like to, kind of approach it holistically. Like there's going to be like a multi-part engagement, it's not just like one area or the other.
That's awesome. I love that answer. That's great. All right. So last question before we turn it open to folks. The movement strategy calls for the Wikimedia movement to provide the essential infrastructure for free knowledge by the year 2030. How much of that infrastructure should or could be directly operated by the Wikimedia movement versus providing tools with which others can support the infrastructure?
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is like why I'm here. It's all of it all at once. So, I think this is a critical question that the whole foundation needs to be involved in answering together. We have this incredible opportunity to, test theories and empower as many people as we possibly can. And within that, like huge scope, like even with all of the tremendous resources that we have available to us, there are limits on what we can accomplish. So we're going to have to focus on a few promising opportunities rather than spread ourselves like way too thin and maybe fail, at everything because we just didn't invest enough or commit enough to a few ideas. So, something that I believe is that we are going to have to do two things at the same time. And those things are provide people with access to the sum of human knowledge, and also provide the means to collaborate and share that knowledge. Like both of those things need to be present for this, system that we have to work. So anyway, so to get to where we need to go, I think we're going to just have to try a few different things and hopefully focus in some areas and see what works in practice. And that's what I'm here to do.
Absolutely. That's great. Super excited for the future. Awesome. Okay. Well, I am going to stop asking questions then and give folks, I'm looking at the chat. I'm also looking at the room. So is there anybody there that would like to ask a question in either of those places? Give them a chance to catch up. Okay. So I don't know. Can you see the chat, Selena, or you want me to read the question? There's one in chat now.
Yeah. How about you read it, and that way it'll be preserved for eternity.
Good point. Okay. So what do you think are the biggest weaknesses of the current software setup, MediaWiki or otherwise, from your own Corin?
I'm going to ask you a clarifying question, which is, when we say current software setup, do you mean in support of like Wikipedia, or can you just clarify just a little bit what you mean by current software setup?
Yaron, if you are, I'm assuming you're listening because you asked the question. So if you could just type into chat a clarification. I had the same question about which current software setup are you referring to? Of the software produced by the Wikimedia Foundation, I suppose, he says.
The current weaknesses. See. So I'll say my mind. I don't know if I'm just like rejecting the question. I really am not. So I'm gonna go about this in a little bit of a roundabout way. But my mind immediately went, what are the strengths? And I think one of the strengths is that it's incredibly adaptable. And I think in that strength, there's a weakness. And what I mean by that, it's been incredibly adaptable. It's been able to scale to an extent and at a price point. You know, how we run a top 10, worldwide top 10 website, and the cost of operating that is quite low. It's shocking, honestly. I have colleagues that work for other, collaboration, large, websites, and they are truly astounded, but, by the small number of staff, and just frankly, the absolute cost of like how we operate. But I think, some of these questions that have been posed to me today hint at some of the weaknesses, which is, when the use cases for the software significantly diverge, how do we hold that all together? And where do we invest to like make major improvements as opposed to like very small incremental improvements that might not benefit like the whole of the community? So that's around, MediaWiki itself. So I would say that's like a fundamental challenge, and I'll just, and this is, I'm sure, a controversial opinion, but, when I was talking to Cindy about the difference between, the knowledge base use case and the Wikipedia use case, and she told me about the difference in the extensions that were installed, I was like, that sounds almost like a fork. So I think this question is on people's minds, and I think it's worth talking about, like what are we investing in and why, and then like, how do we support that like over a long period of time? It's already been quite successful, I would say, like the way that things are today, but I don't, I need to be educated about sort of the principles that people are applying, so that, I can continue to support the success. And if we are in a state where we need to kind of make some trade-off decisions, like the best way that I can support that is just by being better educated about the use cases, about the ways that people are thinking about supporting the software into the future. So anyway, so my answer is that flexibility, which I think is like a great asset and incredible, but also there's some weaknesses there in terms of like making, clear decisions about what we support going forward.
Yeah, I try and avoid the F word, and it wasn't flexibility. But yeah, absolutely. One of the struggles we have is how many degrees of freedom we have in how we install the software, and just how you configure a wiki farm is just one example. And so limiting that a little bit could make things better for all. Yeah. All right. So we have another question in the chat. Do you envision a future shared vision on what MediaWiki should be able to do for enterprise use cases? In my humble opinion, I'll spell it out. The Semantic MediaWiki community has 100 different paths and competing extensions for all of their use cases, many of which are hacks on the MediaWiki core.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I think, the people that are doing this work, they hold like a lot of the answers here. Like, I don't see myself as like becoming, first of all, I'm not an expert in PHP, right? Like my background really, like if we think about what I have done professionally, it's primarily like C and C++ and Perl, right? Like that's, that's like my professional programming life. I think where I can add value is like helping highlight where we might have like clear points of decision that we could make together, and maybe like bringing people together to talk through like what that might mean and like the trade-offs that we would be making to make any of those decisions. So I do think there's value in at least articulating what a shared vision might be, because then, you know, you can kind of get some of this stuff on the table. Like I really am not afraid to talk about some more of the controversial options, just because I think like not saying them doesn't make them go away. You know, they're on people's minds. So, you know, I think, you know, we need to find like productive, constructive ways to talk about the different options that are on the table. But like, you know, I think it's important to talk things through, and then also to kind of write that down and make it, you know, a resource for people to learn more. So I would say, you know, getting back to that, like flexibility as the strength and a weakness. Internally, I have seen the places where it is problematic for teams to kind of work in parallel. You know, there's a lot of like interdependencies between many different developer teams that are working on different features that maybe, you know, if we thought about it a little differently, we could allow greater parallelization of developer teams. So that's an area where, you know, it's probably worth making some investments like on the Wikimedia, you know, internally to make things clearer. But, you know, whether that means that, you know, we have to have clarity on every aspect of what MediaWiki core is like, I'm not really sure. But I would just say like, I can see the value of getting more clarity for the foundation teams. But beyond that, I think I really need to be guided by the folks that are supporting the software for third parties.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. There was a comment in the chat about MediaWiki should have an extension store or marketplace like many other large CMSs, and a continuation, and maybe not only a store, but more cohesion on what extensions offer similar functionality. So I'll just, you know, press on that for a second. You know, I don't know whether you've given any thought to extension stores. You know, certainly there is the topic you mentioned a couple of times that, you know, the overlap between the extensions used by third parties and those used for the Wikimedia use case is widely divergent. So I guess if there were an extension store of some sort, would you imagine it would be something that the Wikimedia Foundation would be responsible for, or something that the third party community could manage?
Yeah. Bernard, that's hilarious. So that we should run SMWCon in order to provide a knowledge base about extensions. Yeah, that's awesome. So, you know, it's my understanding that, well, I need to learn a little bit more, but the goals of ToolForge for the you know, the Lua community that builds, you know, Wikipedia bots and scripts and things like that seems like maybe in like a similar rhyming vein. So I'm curious if maybe that might be a path, you know, as we're experimenting with ToolForge and make that, you know, more of a resource for the community. Maybe there's an opportunity there. I can see like how that would be useful to the community. I think the thing we got to think about is that the internet is just different now. And so we set up something like that and then it's subject to spam, you know, so there's like some administrative things to work out probably. But I definitely see the value of, you know, both to maintainers, people that are seeking better tools, all that totally makes sense to me. It's just a matter of like, okay, like, can we like focus it in a way so that it doesn't become like a, you know, a graveyard or a dead end for spam? Let's like think about that. But yeah, I totally see the value.
Awesome. Are there any questions in the room before I go on and expand on what's in the chat?
No questions in the room. Yes.
It's the end of a very long first day of the conference.
This is the end of the day, right? Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yes.
Selena just woke up. She's in Portland in the States. So
I don't know if it's too detailed, but I mean, Wikibase is of course based on a triple store. It's BlazeGraph. Are there plans for the future to because it's already maybe bought by Amazon? I'm not pretty sure about the fact. So do we keep this triple store as Mario backend, or are there other plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is an active discussion. I actually attended a cupcake celebration of the folks that migrated Elasticsearch to the latest version with a team that's also looking at the BlazeGraph issues. And I don't have like a clear answer for you right now, but I would just say that the team is very aware, and they're trying to like figure out, you know, what the best migration path is. They may even be closer to a decision because that, you know, that cupcake event was a few weeks ago now. But yeah, they're very aware of the change in ownership, and, you know, and there's a couple different options for them on the roadmap going forward. So like, if you want to know more about that, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I can, you know, get some updated information for you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks. Great question.
So, indeed, they look a little bit tired.
Yeah, we shouldn't keep you late. So,
Lex, you don't have a question? No? Oh, he doesn't?
really? Oh.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Marijn, you don't have a question?
No.
There are two more comments in the chat. I don't know whether you want to expound. Maybe we could use that sort of as a way to wrap up. And I'll mention both of them, and you can riff on whichever or both of them if you want. One comment was, in many aspects, the development of Drupal and its community could inspire MediaWiki's roadmap, which is an interesting one. And I would add to that that what the Drupal folks have done also with supporting their users with consulting help and hosting. And then the other question being, what is MediaWiki's market share in money, and do you have any plans to increase it?
I just like a follow-up on the market share in money. Do you mean like, can you just clarify quickly? Like, do you mean that market share, like if I were to translate the market share to dollars, or I'm such a literal person, like I don't. Andrew, can you clarify slightly? While you're clarifying, I'll speak to but you mean like what I think the value of it is? No, I don't understand the question. You're going to have to follow up and tell me, but I'll answer the question. I'll tell you what I think that question could be and then answer it. So regarding Drupal, yeah, I mean, what an amazing community success story. I knew and met Angie Byron like way back, and I knew a lot of folks in the Drupal community. They had a nonprofit that was based in Portland, so I like met a few of those folks too. So yeah, I think that's like an amazing, interesting success story. And yeah, really interested to hear from folks like about what you think the specific parallels are. I think a little bit, one difference is that I don't think that Drupal had like a particular instance of the software that became like what Wikipedia is. And so I think just in terms of the trajectory and like where like the weight of the volunteer communities were, I don't know, it just changes things, you know, when there's like this major scalability issue that like looms over the development roadmap. So I would say that's like, you know, blessing, curse is like both things, you know? So anyway, so it's just like something to remember about the trajectories. On the market share money, I think I'm just going to have to like follow up on that. Like, I think it's not part of my role explicitly to expand the market share of MediaWiki, I will say. Like, my role is like to enable the spread of free knowledge, right? And MediaWiki is like one of the essential parts of how we do that. But I would say it's a little bit to the side of what my core responsibilities and really what I should, focus my time on. That doesn't say I shouldn't contribute to it at all. It's just, I would just like be honest, like it's not a core part of my mission. And it doesn't mean that someone else can't focus on it, right? And then this last question, if possible, should the foundation be doing more to promote MediaWiki? There's basically been no promotion so far, even the front page of MediaWiki.org. It hardly looks enticing. Well, yeah, this is a great question, and maybe it's related to the increasing the market share. I think, I would say that there's an opportunity here similar to what I've seen, when I participated in the Postgres community. And there, they created opportunities for people who were consultants and who, were active contributors to create that space, for people to come and like find out more and learn, get direct support. And we had like a really active, or have, like they still have it. I'm just like, I'm not like a direct contributor anymore. So I'm like trying to talk about it in the past tense, but the community that supports Postgres today is incredibly vibrant and active. But they have like a whole set of people that like focus on this. And there's not just like one person that like dictates how that works. So I would just say that there's an opportunity there. And, I would be very supportive of like a community driven effort. There's probably a lot that I don't know here, like maybe like the ownership of the website is like in a state that makes it hard for people to contribute, but really just like super open to learning more. And I've seen great models for this working in like a community shared ownership way.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're out of time, a little bit over. I think you also have another meeting to get to.
Oh, yeah, I probably do.
But I really appreciate you joining us here today. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation, and I hope we can continue it in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really great to see you all, and I hope I didn't keep you too much from dinner or, your afternoon snacks. Thanks for having
me. Snack right before this, so that was good.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you, Selena.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.